Good afternoon. I'm Diane Richardson with the Charles County Sheriff's Office, Media Relations, and I'd like to thank you for attending today's urgent press conference. Is everybody ready to start?
Yes.
Okay. What I'd like to do is simply introduce the people who will be speaking today. The first speaker will be Sheriff Troy Berry, followed by Dr. Kimberly Hill, Superintendent, Charles County Public Schools. After that, we'll hear from Charles County State's Attorney Tony Covington. And we also have on hand with us Dr. Diana Abney, Health Officer, Charles County, and FBI Special Agent Gordon Johnson. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Today we call for a press conference to announce the arrest of an individual who perpetrated some very awful and heinous crimes against children in our community, mostly middle schoolers and pre-adolescent students. Carlos D'Angelo Bell, age 30, a former instructional assistant at Benjamin Stoddard Middle School in Waldorf and a former track coach at La Plata High School, was indicted by the Charles County Grand Jury last Friday with charges of second-degree assault, child abuse, and the production of child pornography. And additional charges to include multiple counts of first-degree sex offense and first-degree assault are forthcoming. To bring you up to date on this investigation, I would like to recap how this case came to the attention of the Charles County Sheriff's Office. In November of last year, we were notified of possible inappropriate activity involving Bell while he was coaching track at La Plata High School. A student's parent observed suspicious text messages on their child's phone that were sexual in nature. Detectives were able to track the text messages back to Mr. Bell. A search of Bell's work computer did not reveal any illegal activity, and nothing suspicious was noted. However, school authorities took immediate steps to remove Bell from the school where he worked and barred him from coaching and from the premises of any school property. The Charles County Sheriff's Office investigators obtained a search warrant and confiscated Bell's electronic devices. The electronic devices were submitted to the Maryland State Forensic Crime Lab for forensic analysis. Just last week, our investigators received word that child pornography was found on Bell's electronic devices. Some of the evidence found included graphic images of Bell sexually assaulting victims. Some of the crimes appeared to have been committed on school property and others at his home in Waldorf. Investigators have identified some victims seen on the images and have obtained statements. So far, we are aware of 7 victims. Sadly, there may be more cases that we are not aware of at this time. Through the course of this investigation, Carlos Bell admitted to detectives he is HIV positive, and evidence was recovered to corroborate that statement. Today, we are asking parents who have children that may have had any contact with Mr. Bell to sit down and have a conversation with them regarding this matter. With support of the FBI, the Charles County Sheriff's Office has established a toll-free number, which is 1-800-CALL-FBI. And I repeat, 1-800-CALL-FBI. Bell was arrested last Friday, June 30th, at his home, and he was indicted later that afternoon. He is currently being held at the Charles County Detention Center with no bond. The Charles County Sheriff's Office is working with the State's Attorney's Office and the Charles County Public Schools to dig deeper into Bell's background to determine if there were any other victims in our community. I will now turn the mic over to Dr. Kimberly Hill, Superintendent, for her remarks. After she speaks, State's Attorney Tony Covington will discuss the judicial process as it moves forward, and we will take some questions. Please understand there may be areas we are unable to elaborate on due to an ongoing nature of this investigation. Thank you.
Good afternoon. On Friday, the Charles County Sheriff's Office informed me of serious sexual misconduct charges against a former employee of Charles County Public Schools. I am alarmed and saddened by these allegations against a former employee that involve some of our students and took place in one of our school buildings. This former employee, Carlos Bell, was an instructional assistant at Benjamin Stoddard Middle School and a track coach at La Plata High School. Mr. Bell was first hired by Charles County Public Schools in the fall of 2014. He worked for a short time at J.P. Ryan Elementary School and also coached indoor track at Maurice J. McDonough High School during the 2015-16 school year. The Sheriff's Office began investigating Mr. Bell in December after receiving a complaint from a high school parent who raised concerns about electronic messages from Mr. Bell to her child. We immediately removed Mr. Bell from his duties as an employee, and we directed him to have no contact with students or student athletes. No charges were filed against Mr. Bell until Friday, June 30th, after the Sheriff's Office reviewed videos stored on Mr. Bell's personal electronic devices. Mr. Bell has not worked in any of our school buildings since December 22nd, 2016. Charles County Public Schools has cooperated fully with the Sheriff's Office throughout this investigation, and we will continue to work with Sheriff Berry and his staff to ensure that all facts are uncovered and appropriate actions are taken. In an organization that is all about children, these allegations are horrifying. To our parents and our community who put their faith and trust in us to safeguard their children, I apologize on behalf of Charles County Public Schools. Student safety is job one, and clearly we have work to do to ensure that this will never happen again. As a parent and a school leader, I commit to the following. First, we will continue to fully cooperate with the Charles County Sheriff's Office to ensure that this individual is held accountable. Second, I commit to support and counseling for the children who were victimized. Third, we will conduct a comprehensive and transparent review of our safety protocols, as well as a review of our curriculum regarding sexual assault and harassment, so that all students and employees are aware of how to recognize and report such incidents. Fourth, we promise continued communication with our community and our stakeholders. Today, I sent a message to all Charles County Public Schools staff members and Charles County Public School parents who have provided the school system with their email address. We encourage parents to talk with their children and to report anything inappropriate whatsoever to the hotline that Sheriff Berry mentioned. That phone number is 1-800-225-5324. Finally, the alleged actions of one employee do not represent the work of the more than 3,500 members of the Charles County Public Schools organization. We will do whatever is necessary to earn our community's trust and to ensure that our schools are safe places for teaching and learning. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Tony Covington, State's Attorney here in Charles County. First, let me commend some people for their work in this matter. Charles County Sheriff's Office did a fantastic job getting wind of this on a Tuesday and having this predator in custody on Friday. Also, the Charles County public school system did exactly what they're supposed to do, from what I can tell, from the beginning of this back in December. Also, we have to commend Maryland State Police Forensics Lab for the very tedious job of going through these devices and coming upon and finding this incriminating evidence. Please understand that in December, the only thing that was on the table, if you will, was an inappropriate text message. And it does not appear that the young man that was targeted at fell prey or victim to any sexual assault itself. So for them to continue on, do what they needed to do through the lab, and then finally getting that information on Tuesday, this is an ongoing investigation even to this point. The indictment that has been issued by the Charles County Grand Jury has 5 counts, and I do have to correct one thing. It is 3 counts of production of child pornography and 2 counts of simple second-degree assault. At this point, there's not a child abuse charge. However, the facts that buttress those charges are chock full of allegations of sexual assault, much of it found on video. And I just want to make sure we understand, we have not charged everything that we could at that point, simply because the Sheriff's Office was still in the process of trying to identify the youngsters who were involved and interview them. So based on that, we charged what we could at that time. More charges will be forthcoming. The timeline on that, not certain. It really depends on wrapping up the investigation, which, as you can imagine, is very extensive. And of course, if there are any individuals out there who we are not aware of who come forward, obviously they'll need to be spoken with as well. This is a horrific crime that has been alleged. The evidence is there, and all citizens can rest assured that the Charles County State's Attorney's Office is going to do everything that we can to hold the individual accountable and that he does not commit these type of acts in the future.
Now, if we have any questions, we will receive any questions at this time.
Have any victims contracted HIV?
We're not aware of any of the victims have contracted HIV at this time, but we do have Dr. Abney here with Charles County Health Department. She can give us an overview in regards to the HIV and that particular process, that testing process.
So as the sheriff said, at this time, we don't know of anyone who has contracted HIV. People will be offered testing. Depending on what the initial tests are, there may be other tests that are done.
So none of the 7 victims have been tested yet?
That I'm not aware of. Perhaps the law enforcement people do. I was brought in today to speak to you about HIV specifically.
To answer that specific question, some of the victims have been tested, and we do not have a positive response in regards to their testing at this time.
Can you give a number of how many?
We have 2 at least.
2 tested so far, and they have been negative?
At this time.
2 tested.
How long do these tests take to actually show results?
So you can see results as early as about 2 to 3 weeks, and usually as late as about 3 to 6 months.
How many victims do you all think you're looking for here? How many kills?
We know at this time it's in about 7, and we're continuing. That's why we have put out the 1-800 number to see if Mr. Bell has contacted with any other students or any adult individuals for the medical reasons for that purposes.
So you have done recordings of 7 students. So there's 7 that you all have been able to identify. Did it appear that there were more than 7 and you all have not been able to identify them?
We're in
you all found 7?
We have 7, and we have some additional people have not been contacted. So we have approximately, do believe in the area of about 10 thus far.
It sounds like this was brought to light around the same time as the Deontay Caraway case that was happening in Prince George's County. Was there any connection in terms of what led this parent to look at this cell phone and find this information that you all have found in your investigation so far?
No, we just understood that the parent saw this young person, their child, texting at late hours of the night and was being inquisitive and looked at the text, and it seemed sexual in nature, and then it was brought to our attention.
A question for the superintendent. When the Caraway case happened, there were a lot of school systems that were reviewing their policies and practices. Did this school system do that then?
We consistently review our policies and our practices regarding student safety. So I can't say that we did anything specifically different following that Prince George's case, but certainly it is something that we do on a regular basis to ensure that we are providing the best and most safe environment we can for our kids.
How long have you
describe for us what your background check system is for people at the level of teacher's aide, and is it volunteer coach or was he paid coach?
I'm not certain whether he was volunteer or paid, but I can answer the first part of that question. So employees who are hired by Charles County Public Schools go through an extensive background check. They're all fingerprinted prior to being allowed to work with children. Those fingerprints are sent away to the Criminal Justice Information System, commonly referred to as CJIS. And Mr. Bell's screening came up twice with a clean record.
When was he hired?
2014.
What position was he hired for?
Instructional assistant.
And you mentioned several schools. So he had worked at Stoddard, is that right?
Benjamin Stoddard Middle School,
And he
yes.
also worked at Ryan?
J.P. Ryan Elementary School was his first position with us,
That was
yes.
the first one, okay.
Yes.
And then the sexual assaults that were recorded on school grounds, where did that take place?
That, I think, is a question more appropriate for Sheriff Berry.
Sheriff?
We are still trying to confirm those locations, but everything that we know at this time, it appears to be at Benjamin Stoddard Middle School.
In a classroom?
That's what we're aware of at this time,
In
sir.
a classroom. He had sexual relations with children inside a classroom that he recorded. Is that correct?
That's right.
What are the age frames of the people, or the students who are impacted?
At Benjamin Stoddard, it's going to be kids in the age range of 6th grade to 8th grade. So.
Could you characterize in any way how this individual made contact with kids? And I guess I'm going back to the Prince George's case where kids were offered phones in exchange for providing favors. Could you characterize in the charging documents or the indictment how this unfolded?
All
Was
of
he
the,
able to entice these individuals?
all of that is still under investigation.
How long had he been at Stoddard?
Since March of 20, I don't want to tell the wrong number, Katie. March of 2015. He started with us at J.P. Ryan Elementary School as a temporary IA and then became a permanent IA or instructional assistant March of 2015, Benjamin Stoddard Middle School.
Was he coming from another school district in the state?
Not that we're aware of.
So the instructional assistant, is this somebody that works with special education kids, or is this like, as we describe, a teacher's aide, second in the classroom?
Both of those are accurate. There are some instructional assistants that work specifically with special education students. There are others that work in general education classrooms.
Could you describe to us exactly how he functioned, what were his jobs?
He was providing support to kids, not all special education kids, but general education kids as well.
Does it appear his victims were special education students?
I don't have that information.
And Sheriff, is it apparent from the evidence so far that we don't want to report these as they all happen in school, if they happen in different places? Some happen in school environment, some happen elsewhere. What's accurate?
We have reason to believe the evidence is showing that some happened on school property and some happened in his home in Waldorf.
How many happened on school property?
That's still under investigation.
Have you been able to get access to his phone? Is he cooperating with you when it comes to you getting this digital evidence that you need?
We have all those items in our possession, and we're still going through the process of trying to get into those items and extract that information.
More than one phone then?
Yes.
How many?
I don't want to tell you anything. It's more than one phone. I think we're in the area of 3 or 4 phones.
So let me just clarify the timeline. It was in December that the parent reported it?
Yes.
And what happened between then and now and when you all were able to get the cell phones to start looking at the video evidence?
Once we seized the electronic devices through a search warrant, we
When were they seized?
they were seized in December of last year.
Uh-huh.
We took that information and we submitted those items to the Maryland State Police for examination. And we did not get a result back in regards to those electronic devices until last week.
That's a long time. What were you all told about? Why did it take so long for them to look into it? It seems to me it would have been an emergency situation.
Well, all we knew at that particular time, and I don't want to step on State's Attorney Tony Covington's toes, we knew at that time, we just knew that there was an inappropriate text.
Mhm.
Yes.
If I may.
Yeah.
There was inappropriate text. As I indicated earlier, there's no information that the individual, the youngster who got that text, had any physical contact with this defendant. But it brings up a very good point, Tracy, and that is that the resources that our forensics folks have here locally and at the state level end up with these cases taking quite a long time. My understanding of what the information that was available is that this would not have put it to a faster track, although quite frankly, I'm not sure there is a faster track. I will tell you that it takes about 8 months on any case when you're talking about computers. Okay? You have, in a new day and age, computers and other devices are used all the time in crime. And we have not upgraded the forensics unit as far as personnel and resources. And that's not the forensic unit's fault. It's the problem of folks not putting the resources towards it. I commended MSP for this because they were diligently doing their job. Of course, Charles County is not the only jurisdiction they deal with. They deal with the entire state. And as you can imagine, all the crime that goes on nowadays, there is some component of computers or phones that have to be looked at. So the timing on this, sure, we wish it would be better, but this is not TV. The reality is that they don't have the resources to get it done more quickly. Doesn't mean they're sitting up there twiddling their thumbs not doing anything. They're busting their hump. And the sergeant who did this did a great job once he was able to get to these devices. And as soon as he got to them, as soon as he saw it, he called the sheriff's office and my office, assistant state's attorney, and like I said, that was Tuesday. On a Friday, he's indicted. So I don't think there's any blame there on the Maryland State Police. Unfortunately, and I mean it, unfortunately, the time frame is what it is, not because someone was derelict.
Is he being held on a no bond status?
Yes, he is.
Is that because of backlog or because of encryption of these devices and takes them off the crack?
You'd have to ask him that, but I mean, it's clearly backlog. We understand that.
Do we believe there are any more victims after that fact, after December, between December and now?
The investigation is ongoing. We don't know that. Of course, part of this press conference is reaching out to everybody who may have been a victim.
I have a question for the schools. Do you have any idea how this man could have had sex with children inside a classroom while school's going on?
If you don't think I've asked myself that thousands of times since learning, you're wrong. It is devastating to us that something like this could take place in a classroom, in a school building, where adults are charged with taking care of children. So I can assure you that there will be very persistent follow-up for us to determine exactly what happened and how it was allowed to happen. I can tell you once again, the 3,500 people who work for us are good people. And something here happened that we will figure out, and we'll make sure that it doesn't happen again.
Is the teacher whose classroom he was working in somehow held responsible for him being alone with students?
There are several different classrooms and different teachers that he was working with.
Have any of them been placed on administrative leave?
Not at this point. We're still working with the sheriff's office to determine a timeline for what time of day and what dates and that sort of thing.
So no one else associated with the system has been punished outside of college?
Correct.
Is there any evidence anywhere in this case so far of collaborators, file sharing with different sites around the world, anything like that going on? A juvenile sex club, if you will, anything like that?
We are still, like I said earlier, this is an ongoing investigation, and we're exploring all those
Haven't
avenues.
ruled it out?
Have not ruled it out.
Okay.
Wanted to ask, I know Dr. Hill had mentioned that he had gone through extensive background check. Was there anything that maybe wouldn't have shown up on the background check that you were aware of, perhaps any charges that had been filed in the past?
We are not aware of him having any criminal history that would have led to this type of behavior or any behavior or criminal history at all. It was relatively clean. We didn't see anything.
Is there any, just besides this, any disciplinary action when it comes to the school system for this instructor? Has anybody, teacher, come forward to tell you about anything else involving this individual?
This individual no longer works for Charles County Public Schools.
When he did, was there anybody come forward about anything with any discipline?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Oh, can you clarify one thing, Sheriff? Tracy asked you about the number of victims. Are you saying 7 or 10?
Saying 7 have been identified, that we're aware of at least 10, that we're still in the process of interviewing them and getting additional information. And I want to thank everyone for being here, and please put out that number in reference to the 1-800-CALL FBI, because that phone system is being manned, and we're looking for anyone that have been in contact with Mr. Caller Spell and may have some additional information in regards to this investigation.
And were any of these victims high school students?
I'm aware of a middle school age students that would be between the ages of 6th grade and 8th grade.
These are federal and state charges?
State charges.
State charges. Are they going to be federal charges?
We've coordinated with the FBI early on in this, and on Tuesday and Wednesday, there hasn't been any decision as far as where these charges are going to end up. I will tell you that Charles County is going to go forward on whatever charges we come up with. I don't know what the federal government may do at this point.
Thank you, everyone.
Can we get spell